everybody? We're back together. It's Anwar and Catch. It's the Overreaction Monday show on Orange Bloods Live. And it feels good to have the two-man duo back again on a Monday. You know how the summer gets as Mondays get in travel and things? We're back. We told you we would be back. And we're still brought to you by the guys over at Rogue Shop. Use that promo code Orange Bloods. I'll tell you a little bit more about them later. But right now, like, comment, subscribe to the page. You know, the YouTube things. Just push a bunch of buttons. Hop into the Specs chat. Send us some super chat. We do like to spend your money. It does pay bills. Anwar, Texas football recruiting. We start there. We do this thing every year. I feel like you and I, maybe the last time we did a show, we did the thing where we kind of make fun of people that overreact at this time of the year. It's a tried and true tradition at this point. Oh my God, the Aggies have commitments, or OU has done this, or Texas doesn't have enough commitments. And we tell everybody, they're not worried behind the scenes.
Yes.
Chill the fuck out. You know, it's like, you know, they're going to go on, you're going to go on vacation. They're going to get some commitments.
Yeah.
You're going to come back from vacation. Everybody's going to tell you you should go on vacation more.
Yes.
You're going to go back on vacation. They're going to get more commitments.
Yeah.
You're going to come back from vacation. They're going to tell you go back on vacation. And then you're going to ride that bit all the way.
All the way.
Until the next time you vacation. It also is tried and true. The Longhorns got, I think, what was a little bit of a five-star unexpected commitment yesterday in five-star defensive end Richard Wesley. And to be fair, it's not like he's a consensus five-star where everybody has him ranked as a five-star. ESPN and Rivals do. Rivals has him as the number 6 player in America. On3 and 24/7 have him as something slightly less than that. But we can quibble over the rankings. He is a composite or On3 industry five-star when you merge them all together.
Mm-hmm. But
more than anything, yesterday's just a reminder of, like, guys, worry about the red zone. If you want to just find something to worry about, I got some stuff. Special teams, like, there are things that are legitimately worrisome that you could focus your stuff on, but not recruiting, because Sark in this group is so good. They just signed the number 1 recruiting class literally 15 seconds ago. They're capable of pulling a kid in from California and then just getting that kid to commit, because that's what they do. That's what they're capable of. And here we go again. It's, late June, and we're doing that thing that we seem to do every year. But I kind of came away from yesterday thinking, thank God this happened, because this, I think, officially stops all of the what's going on talk that I can't help but give people side eyes over.
Yeah. I mean, so it happens, and it started a little bit last week, Catch, when, basically A&M picks up a couple of guys. And one of them that Texas was interested in, the running back, what's his name? KJ Edwards. Am I saying his name correct? So, that was a guy that Texas was interested in. They were wanting. They picked up another guy, a five-star, a couple of days later, a day or so later, and at some point now, and Texas wasn't in on that guy, so we're clear. Yeah. But then it became that looking over there kind of thing, like, oh, well, look at A&M, like look what they're doing, and we really would have liked KJ Edwards. And look, I talked to some people behind the scenes, and so it's funny when we had our war room last week. And I asked someone about that, and the reaction was, yeah, we would have liked to have them, but we probably got like 2 guys that are about ready to commit. They thought it might come on Thursday and Friday. It looks like it came a little bit later than that. And the response was, the question was to me is like, what, are people worried or something?
I mean,
and I'm like, and it was like, well, yeah, just a little bit. And it's like, really?
And truthfully, they won't get carried away by yesterday either. They don't change their rules based on whether they get guys or not. They really do believe these things get settled late in the process. They're not going to be shocked if this recruitment is similar. Look, one thing you'd say about this Texas staff is they don't hate the players and they don't hate the game. They know what they're involved in. And you hear it from fans who are like, oh man, Texas A&M spending money. You don't really hear that a whole lot from the Texas coaches. Like, they just get after it. And I think the thing that you said, that I think there's two really critical points. One, the point that you just made, which is the Texas coaches like, move on to the next one. Like, that guy was good, but we get good guys, so we're not tripping, right? And then the other thing is, I don't think, how people who've scratched and clawed and fought their way to pay bills every day of their life, and then somebody like that wins the lottery, and then you check with them, and it's like, where are you living these days? You out at Barton Creek? And they're like, no, I've got a place off of Old Torf, a 1-bedroom. Like, I'm not spending a lot of, that person's like, they're like, hey, let's get a dessert for dinner. They're like, whoa. We came here with a Groupon. We leaving with what's on. No matter how much money they have, they kind of spend like that. I think there are college football fans that when your program has either been chasing another program for so long, or they've just been kind of even and combative, that you really do worry about what they do a lot. What's this guy doing? If you're fighting, trying to date a girl and she's looking at multiple guys, what's this guy over here doing? I need to make sure my game steps up. What Texas fans have not yet had time to adjust to, but this is their new reality, and I think the coaches really get it, and I think it's good. They've recruited now so well where the roster's been built to a level. There's nobody that they're really desperate for anymore. They did do that. And I think you could make a case that the offensive line this year, Felix Ojo, really important, that maybe there's a little bit there. But by and large, this isn't a roster where you look anywhere and go, oh, man, they better get that guy in this class or that position is screwed. They've got running backs and wide receivers and young tight ends. They got so many young tight ends now, they don't even know if they can get them all on the field. They've got defensive tackles. They've got 11 defensive tackles now on the books going into next season. So all this thing that has been happening the last few years where the defensive tackle position gets decimated and nobody's left, they figured that out. Edge position, linebacker, DBs, like everything is spread about. There's super blue chips everywhere on the 2 deep. They're not even all in the starting lineup because you've got guys like Xavier Filsaime who are, it's like, well, Michael Taft and Jelani McDonald. And they are really good players on this Texas team. And there are really super talented kids that can't quite get on the field yet. And so if you're Texas, you just don't trip out. And the elephant in the room, Anwar, and I'm so glad that you and I, kind of our first show that we can do together last couple of weeks in the Overreaction Monday capacity. Diabell wins the Elite 11, top prize MVP. You and I both know we can talk about all this other stuff all we want to, but just like Arch Manning is really the only thing that matters in his recruiting class. If he ends up being that guy, that'll be the Arch Manning recruiting class. And know that you can keep score on the rest, but it will have delivered what it needed to deliver. I think Diabell is the guy that will eventually replace Arch Manning. It lines up perfectly from a timing standpoint. I think he is a top 5 national kind of prospect. He's a guy that I think will play in the NFL. I think if you're looking at high school kids and you're looking at guys that you think potentially project as a future first-round draft pick, he's that guy. It's almost like everybody sleeps on it, but he's in this recruiting class. And if you've got that guy, it's like, okay, well, everything else, I'm almost going to be okay with everything. Because if LSU had gotten Bryce Underwood in their recruiting class last year, they're almost thinking to themselves, it almost doesn't even matter. We have to get that guy at quarterback. And I think Texas has another guy like that at quarterback. So goes Sarkisian and this Texas monster.
I mean, the thing is, so Ketch, there's a couple of things you outlined. And I thought about, as I was thinking about it, and this is kind of one of my first major experiences where we're here for recruiting. You remember when Texas got Malik Jefferson and it almost felt like Texas like stole something.
Well, they
Like,
did.
yeah, right? But that's how it was like. I can't believe we got that guy.
Someone fumbled the bag.
Yes, but someone fumbled it, and it ended up being to Texas's benefit. And it was literally like they stole something, and you couldn't believe you got away with this thing, right? And I was like, oh my god! And it's like now, catch you. It's almost like when you have a guy that commits here. It's like, oh yeah, cool, yeah. That's kind of Richard Wesley, a 5-star, commits out of California, and you're like, yeah, cool. What else is going on? Huh? That's nice, right? I mean, you're not even blinking.
This was parade worthy 2 years ago.
A few years ago, it would have been the biggest heist. You remember I know you remember, but the Kyler Murray recruitment and thinking to yourself, well, you almost could get this guy. And the whole, you better not say anything because you might mess it up, because we're so not used to having good shit that we don't, this is not what we do.
They let that dude just dictate all the terms.
Everything.
Like they had no juice whatsoever. Please, Mr. Kyler Murray, pour a little bit of your porridge into my bowl. I mean, come on.
In hindsight, right? And now what Sark is doing, it's totally different, catch. You mentioned a Dia Bell. You're like, yep, that sounds about right. And an Elite 11. First time a Longhorns ever won Elite 11. You're like, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he's going to follow Arch Manning, probably, the biggest name in college football, one of the biggest name in all sports, if we're just being quite honest with you. It's like, oh, yeah, Dia Bell be the next guy there. And then you look at what may be coming the following, like no one flipped out when Phillip Rivers' kid came in and left without an offer. I was like, all right, no problem. I guess they didn't offer him. Guess they don't want him. It's okay. Because Sark is going to get someone, right? And so back to bring it all back home to what you're saying, it's at that point for me where we just call this Monday at Texas. We just call that a weekend in June at Texas. And yes, I can't overemphasize enough how important Dia Bell is, but it is, he'll get his 5th star at some point, right? I think that'll happen, right? And
he will be a unanimous national top 10 prospect. This weekend cemented that. You can already see the Rivals guys acknowledging, okay, that's changing. And ironically, the next set of rankings changes will be when On3 and Rivals are all together. And I would imagine that's one ranking where Rivals will come hard to where the On3 guys are at. Like I said, he'll be unanimous top 10 when it's all said and done. Onward, we got our first super chat of the day. Longhorn Football Edits, $2. Dia out here recruiting his ears off. True Longhorn. Yeah, man, I told Chad this the other day, Onwar, that stuff matters less. The Pied Piper stuff. It did with Arch as well. It matters a little bit, but these dudes are out here making some real individual decisions out here. They're trying to get their NIL money.
Yeah.
If they can get that and play with Arch, that is super duper. And Dia as well, for that matter. But yo, man, like nobody out here is going to love Dia Bell so much that they go to Texas for $500,000 less. Now, I'm just throwing that number out there. Maybe there is a guy out there that would do that. But I tend to think it's a little more complicated than the old way through which we would view these, which was Vince Young was going to Texas and everybody knew that was going to happen. And suddenly all of the guys wanted to go to Texas. It's not quite that simple anymore.
No, it's not. But and then we appreciate the super chat, Longhorn Football Edits. Catch, but can I just say someone who is recruiting his ass off? And
There's a bunch.
Well, there is a bunch, but Sark once again has put a slant, has done a Vince Carter, because Kenny Baker is recruiting his ass off at this moment. And I made a quick mention of it on Sunday, but Sark did this thing with Chris Jackson, which was, hey, I know you're really not much of a recruiter. I know you don't have any recruiting chops or anything like that. Don't worry about it. I just need you to coach. We'll teach you all this other stuff. Jeff Banks and I we'll give you the secret sauce on how to do this. And the next thing you know, Chris Jackson ends up being the Rivals Recruiter of the Year. Kenny Baker comes in with the same type of resume. Kenny Baker is a guy that, hey, known as an NFL coach, supposed to be a teacher, but not really known as a recruiter. No one really expects anything as far as that goes. But at the end of the day, he is a guy that Justice Terry does commit to. He commits to Texas, and we know there's a lot of variables that go into it, right? But you still got to decide that that's the coach that you're going to play for. And then if you look in this recruiting class so far, we're counting up 4 defensive linemen so far, Catch.
Yeah, 3 defensive tackles. They're all from out of state. And
Yeah.
then, specifically with Wesley yesterday, what you're talking about with Baker, they do the exact same thing with Alan Clark to a certain extent. That guy comes in, and when he was hired, everybody on the Buckeye side said, oh, man, great guy. Texas got themselves a jewel. Like, you guys have no idea this guy's going to be really good. And I was like, oh, cool. The Ohio State guys like him. It's like, well, how is he as a recruiter? I don't know. He's just been kind of a GA. He hasn't had the responsibility of ever actually being a lead recruiter on a guy. Oh, okay. Well, you're like, well, maybe they won't even use him as a recruiter, because they can only send so many guys out on the road and stuff like that. And then it's like, wait a minute, why is this guy being mentioned by every defensive end that he's suddenly being Sarkisian? Again, enough foresight to kind of realize it's not necessarily what's on the resume. It's about what I think you're going to actually be able to do while you're here. And I thought it was fascinating that Alan Clark's name was mentioned yesterday by Wesley, who specifically knew I'm his first commitment. I'm Alan Clark's first commitment. And, Alan Clark's one of the big reasons why Lamar Brown came into town, because they have a pre-existing relationship. And so that's helping them in that recruitment. But just like Baker a year ago, and Baker today is getting his name mentioned by a lot of people, suddenly out of nowhere, this guy's getting his name mentioned with all the big guys. And I think you and I are both, I don't know that this happens a lot in the industry, but we're real big on like going back to how that decision was made. It's like, hey, we'll definitely give those guys credit, but like attaboy to Steve Sarkisian for it was his hire. And then he hired good people and those guys do good work. And I feel like, whether it's Brandon Harris or whether it is any of the guys on his coaching staff, or, I feel like there's so much discussion of the program that guys that do good work do get outlined.
Yeah.
And I think like Alan Clark now is in that realm, and it will be interesting. I mentioned him because I know you had written about Carrington, and I know you had written about Rashad Samples back in the day. We've seen young stars start kind of small. Those guys were assistants to the assistant regional manager. They were the Dwight Schrutes of the Texas football program, but like they had juice. They got known. People were talking about them. You got to keep those guys. And back in the day, Tom Herman didn't keep those guys. It's just ultimately decisions were made. They didn't keep them. And then you get to Texas. And I think one of the things that's real interesting about Sark is he seems to have a real clear vision of, you know what? Go ahead, chase your dream. We're good. We're going to be fine. Go get another job. And then he seems to also have a real clear plan of, whoa. I want you to stay. And
yes,
what do we need to do to make you happy so that you always want to stay? And I think that is very quietly collecting his staff and massaging the egos and the needs and the dynamics that go inside of that to have the well-oiled machine that he has. And that's easier said than done. Think about Ohio State a year ago. They win the national championship, but it sounds like their defensive coordinator and head coach, weren't getting along. And then, the guy gets out. And so, these things can be fragile. And the one thing that you would say about the way that Sarkisian has put together this coaching staff, which is what puts together these recruiting classes, is that they seem very harmonious. This is not a coaching staff yet where at any point in the first 5 years, There's just never been any dissension at all. And that's rare because you and I both have covered Texas staffs where there's always somebody in the background going, these motherfuckers don't know what they're doing. There's always someone around to let you know it's chaos back here, man. And just so you know, don't blame me for the chaos when the chaos gets seen by everybody.
No, these guys, there's a unity on this staff that, I mean, or solidarity, whatever you want to use. He finds guys who fall in line and know their role, and they're okay with it. Like they're perfectly okay with it, and they're not guys that even if they have ambition, it's like Tashard Choice, right? He had ambition. And at some point, they fought to keep him here. And then Tashard still had the Lions offer. They're like, okay, go ahead and go. And we'll find another running backs coach and we'll be fine, right? I mean, everything has happened. The receivers coach, right? That happens and they're fine, right? And often, Catch, low key, sometimes the guys that he replaces them with are actually better than the guys that were there previously. Like and it's interesting because there's not. You remember? I know you remember. What was his name? Was his name Tim Brewster? The guy was the rainmaker.
It's been everywhere.
And that was, I remember when I was here. It's like, oh my God, you got to get a Tim Brewster. If you got an opportunity to get a Tim Brewster, like that's a game changer for you. And it's like now he's just like he literally just finds guys who you've never heard of in your life. Just never. Like you would have to be a diehard to know that Chris Jackson coached at the Jaguars. Like, why would you know who the Jaguars receiving coach was? Like, that makes no sense whatsoever. Doesn't matter. I'll bring in my guys. They'll fall in line. They'll fall in line with the vision from top to bottom. Catch from top to bottom. Like no in betweens. And everybody will go and everyone will eat. Everyone's going to do well. And everyone believes when, you talk to guys, they believe in Sark, man. You talk to people behind the scenes, they all believe in him. They all believe the vision. And hell, recruits are buying it as well. So, I mean, it's kudos to him for pulling that thing off because it's really hard to do.
I want to remind everybody this show is brought to you by the guys over at RogueShop.com. Hey, it was a good day for Rogue Shop. I don't always get to say this out loud with words connected to my brain, but good job, Governor Abbott. Rogue Shop's all right. We're safe. You can still buy all your Rogue Shop stuff for a while now, it seems. They are Texas's home for legal CBD, THC, and more. You heard about that, right, Anwar?
I did not. What happened? Look at him. He vetoed the THC ban.
Yeah. Oh. Now, I was told by my sources that does not mean that like it's necessarily time to party like it's 1999, that there will be some hoops that will need to be jumped through. But yes, it does sound like the veto came in, and it is good for Rogue Shop. You don't have to like, my wife's been like, do we need to call Rogue Shop and just buy everything?
Yeah.
Dude, not a bunch of stuff. Do we need to buy everything? Do we just buy them out? And I was like, no, just relax. Let's wait. But yeah, man, use your promo code Orange Bloods. Just go shopping. Just go shopping. Go to the website. It's a trip, man. It is a hoot. Every time I go there, there's a new offer and a new package, and it's got a funny name, and the artwork cracks me up, and the presentation is just dynamite. Rogue Shop, they're going to be around for a while. Thank God. Just like Texas fans are like, Steve Sarkisian is going to stick around for a while. And I think the only thing other than burnout, there's no reason to think that he won't. And if he keeps recruiting like this, it's easier not to burn out if like you've got good people working for you. And he's got a bunch of them. Again, I think you and I both love where he's at here with his staff. And I'll segue this way to a different.
By the way, I do have a question for you. Hold your segment for a second on recruiting, though. I have a recruiting question, though. What do you think, as we were talking a little bit beforehand, Texas has 15 commits at this moment. Nearly half, because it's hard to do half, obviously, at 15. 7 of them are out of state, guys, Catch. 8 of them are in state. 7 of them are out of state guys. And again, we'd have to go back and see when we've had such a even split. But I'm curious your thoughts on. And again, it's not even. I know 16 would make it even. I do know math, guys. Don't no one kill me in the comments here. What are your thoughts on 7 out of that 15 being out of state guys and not in-state guys?
Well, I think this shift has been occurring for a while. You know, we remarked that when Tom Herman did something similar in the 2020 class, 2019. I'm trying to remember. One of those was like all Texas guys, and the next one was like all out-of-state guys. And we remarked, interesting that Tom Herman isn't getting the blowback for recruiting out-of-state guys the way literally Charlie Strong did just a few years ago. You guys ate his ass out for that, and then Tom Herman does it, and then nobody says anything. And I think I think we're at a point where people keep score on that for whatever reason. The media had a bug up their ass about Charlie Strong going out of state. And they don't. And I look, you guys know it. You know it's true. Nobody writes that story now. But like, you'll forgive Anwar and I if like we've got PFD from those discussions always existing while we were on the clock.
Oh, who was it that wrote the story about the Texas high school coaches?
Yes.
They had like
that was in the Athletic, I think. It might have been like Feldman or somebody.
Yeah, I don't know, bro, but it was that summer, and there was like a revolt.
Maybe not the Athletic, but it was a national writer. I don't know if the Athletic existed back then, but yeah, it was somebody like that, and it was just like, what on earth? These high school coaches sound so pampered. It's like, oh, he's not focusing on us and not giving us enough attention. And it's like, Jesus Christ, you guys are something else. And oh, by the way, fascinating that high school coaches are no longer in charge of recruitments at all anymore. Maybe that's it. Maybe. In 2014, high school coaches still thought everything went through them.
Yeah.
In 2025, they know, hey, man, go through the agent. I'm not involved. They don't let me get involved at all. The parents are in control. Touche.
I mean, we've seen over the past few years, kids just skip their senior year of high school.
Hey, man, we've seen it. Jaden Blue did it, and Quinn Ewers did it. Like, it does happen. Yes. What I was going to say, though, I also think Texas fans have really conditioned themselves to only focus on the big-time guys, really. Like, maybe this is part of me hammering over the head for a decade that the 5 stars and the high 4 stars really matter. There are only so many of those guys in the state of Texas every year. And it's so important to get them. I mean, you got to go wherever you got to go to get them. And so I think when you see a guy like Richard, you just don't care where Richard Wesley comes from. You need as many of those guys. And I think they've looked at it and gone, that's what Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia do. Like, are we going to put one hand tied behind our back? Because we want to be them. And that really is what Texas fans are thirsty for. And I think they realize, hey, man, the team's got to be made up of kids from Texas. That's for the birds if we want to try to be elite of the elite of the elite. Because there just aren't enough kids in the state of Texas to support that. You have to go out of state. And so I think that the state of college football has changed in such a way that I think those things don't even cross the minds of recruiting fans and analysts anymore, when really not that long ago, these were storylines that were national storylines. People talked about this on game day. Oh, Charlie upsetting people in the state of Texas because he's going out to Miami and recruiting players there. And it's just, it has to be whenever they change the laws, like the weed laws are a good example, right? Where it's just like, or I can remember when I was a kid and everything in the state of Texas was closed on Sundays, Chad, or on where you couldn't go to the mall or you couldn't go anywhere. Everything was closed. Everything.
Yeah.
And then one day, everything was opened. And then on Sundays, you could do stuff again. And then you'd look back and you'd go, God, I can't believe we just never had anything open on Sundays. I think that's where we are with this story. Once you've crossed over, it's like, oh my God, everything on Sundays is in color. Let's go forward. This place looks fun. And I think that that's what's happening in recruiting. Once you get Arch Manning, once you start pulling kids from Florida like CJ Baxter, then it's not a theory anymore. Then it's actual. It's just like Adonai Mitchell and Isaiah Bond and some of the guys they pulled in the portal. You know, if you go into the portal early on and all you experience are duds, you get too many Ben Davises and Ray Thorntons. No offense to those guys, but they know what I mean. Just guys that weren't true impact players. Yeah. Then you look at the portal like Sukamel used to look at the portal. It's like, those guys suck. Nobody's ever going to be any good that comes through the portal. But if it hadn't been that way, if you're covering TCU or Baylor, you're like, oh my God, did you see what the portal helped us do right away? And I think that, so it's all about lived experiences. And now Texas fans are like, oh, you know who I like? Kids from Florida. Texas doesn't have any defensive tackles from the state of Texas. They've got 3 from 3 different SEC states, which, if you pay attention to the NFL draft, that would be where the NFL draft says you should be going to find your defensive tackle talent. And what I appreciate from Texas is there's literally 1 defensive tackle in the state of Texas this year that's really worth Texas's attention. Really, really. And they're like, that's cool, man. We'll just go to Mississippi and Alabama and Georgia and Florida and New Jersey, and we'll go where the talent is. You ain't got to tell us twice. Yeah.
I mean, they do, like Birmingham, like Rodney Cleveland, right? I mean, which, you know, you're right. Like there is no panic of, oh my God, we're losing guys in Texas. It has become such a national brand as far as recruiting is concerned. Like, Sark will always say recruiting state of Texas is important. He has to say that, right? You have to save face.
It would be used against him if anything ever came out of his mouth. You know what I mean? Like suddenly Mike Elko's going to the Texas High School Coaches Association with like a film clip of Sarkisian going, we don't really care about Texas recruiting. You know, like.
What it is we only care about the elite guys in Texas. That's what we care about. We don't necessarily need the 3-star. Like we'll take him if we need to. And if we feel like that kid's got an upside like a Trevor Gooseby, we'll go ahead and develop him. But outside of that, that's not where they're living. They're not living in the world where, you remember, again, Connor Williams, all of a sudden, it's like you strike gold, but that wasn't really what was on his resume, as relates to what you thought would occur. Everything that they're getting, though, it's like we're getting the elite of the elite in the state. We'll go. Someone mentioned someone from Duncanville. We'll get the great good kids out of Duncanville, and we'll try to do a little bit more in Houston. But if there's a guy in New Orleans somewhere, hell yeah, let's go ahead and get him. There's a guy in Georgia, hell yeah. And yes, Texas is gone into SEC territory, and they have a brand now, that has people's attention. Like they have the attention. They're not restricted to just, oh man, we got to get these kids. Like there's no panic like there was. Like you lose a DeCorian Moore, or who's the kid that went to Texas Tech. But DeCorian Moore is probably a better example. And you're like, all right, whatever. We'll just go out and get a bunch of other 5-stars and call it a day from other states, and we'll be fine.
And I think that's look, none of the guys that they signed last year at the wide receiver position are as good as DeCorian Moore, but they don't care. They'll just go get NFL guys. Like it is, you collect in volume. You never know what's actually going to happen to DeCorian Moore. That guy might not make it. He could be just like Micah Hudson, the receiver that you mentioned. Maybe Maybe he has a bad freshman year. Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe it just doesn't come together, and then he's transferring in a year or two. And there's no guarantees. So just keep plugging away. Just keep collecting guys. Because the thing I always remind everybody is the reason why you collect as many super blue chips as possible, the math works for you. When you get 5 guys in your program, you need all those guys to hit. You can't even live with the reality that, hey, man, Tommy Brockermeyer, it happens. Like, well, what was wrong? It turned out he had back issues in high school, and we kind of ignored it while we were ranking him. And then he showed up with back issues, and then he retired with back issues. It's like, so he 5-star can't missed? And it's like, yeah. No, look, that happens sometimes like 40% of the time. So you have to accumulate a lot of those guys. So when they miss, you're like, we're going to bring in this guy and this guy and this guy. And that's what Texas has done. And it means that when you miss DeCorian Moore, he's the perfect example because he really was the best guy. But then when it was over with, it was like, well, how was the wide receiver class when it was all said and done? It was probably the best wide receiver class in the country.
Yeah.
Oh, they flipped DeCorian Moore. Well, no, that guy still went to Oregon, but they signed like 3 other guys that were ranked as a 5-star by at least one service. And then, Michael Terry ended up being like the 4th best receiver in the class. And he was a top 10 guy in the state of Texas. So, like the worst case situation was, I guess, best receiving class in the country, even though they didn't get the best receiver in the country. And I think that, look, and consequently, if Richard Wesley peels off, he says yesterday, I'm not taking any more visits. I'm locked in. I'll be at Texas in January. That's my only focus. If something happens, heaven forbid, right? But if something happens, Texas understands they're going to do that to some schools' kids late in the process too.
Yeah.
They understand what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Because if they had to pick or choose, we'll either do this and it happens to us, or we won't do it and it won't happen to us. They'll take their chances with it happening to us because they want to do it. Justice Terry last year, Cade Phillips last year. They tried it with Michael Fasusi last year. Didn't quite work. They're just, if Richard Wesley peels off late, they recruit now at such a level. Lance Jackson in last year's recruiting class, there are numerous examples. They'll go get the next Richard Wesley in the 2027 class, and they'll attempt to get the next Richard Wesley in the 2028 class, and they really won't care where he goes to high school. It almost is in 2025 in this modern era of recruiting. It really doesn't feel like there are state lines anymore. It doesn't. And one of the other elements, Anwar, of no one nitpicking the in-state, out-of-state thing anymore is that nobody else follows those rules either. A&M's recruiting class is almost exclusively of out-of-state guys. They suck in-state. They suck. They suck in-state. Now, they'll probably, and I say that, and you think just a couple of years ago, it was like Terry Bussey was the only guy in the top 10 that they pulled in. It was, thank God they got Terry Bussey because that was kind of it. Didn't really improve a lot last year. Now, Texas isn't just dominating in the state of Texas. They just don't need to because they're doing so well out of state that they can cherry pick. If they get the right 4 or 5 guys from Texas, they don't need to get 10. A&M's following the same blueprint. In fact, they may finish with the number 1 recruiting class in the country in this year when it's all said and done. And it will almost be entirely built on out-of-state guys at this point. You look at the in-state guys and, it doesn't look like Felix Ojo is going to go there. They're not really in it for a guy like Jalen Lott, who everybody seems to think is going to end up at USC at least early on. Although, Anwar, I'm going to say something to you. I just want your reaction on this.
Okay.
I was on some Oregon message boards. I can't remember if it was On3 or 24/7. It wasn't Rivals. I know that. And one of their guys, I think it might have been the 24/7 site, specifically said they'd been talking to their Oregon sources, and it was believed that USC had tabled a $650,000 a year deal for Jalen Lott over 3 years. So
Okay.
$2 million-ish for 3 years, $650 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And those people were acting. I found it funny because Texas fans act like Oregon has unlimited money, and the Oregon response to that was, "Oh, well, that's what they're offering. No way are we going to offer that much money for Jalen Lott." And my thought process was $650. That's really not a lot of money compared to what 5 stars have been getting for the last couple of years. I mean, Texas was giving 5 stars that much money before the revenue sharing kicked in. So my question is it either A, oh, well, if Texas wants this kid, they can just go in November and December and whip it out, the wallet out, and just take that kid like they did with John. If they want him, that money's not so crazy that they can't just do that. Or B, is this somehow an indication that I've had sources and I've seen national reporters report this as well, that the costs of doing business is going to come way down because of the lot auditing and because there's only so much money in the revenue sharing to go around, and that all these other deals, unless they're corporate sponsors, are going to be real hard to approve. Is that semi-affordable offer for a guy that I think is one of the best players in America? Is that more to Texas's gain, or is that more a sign of, hey, pay attention here, guys? It's not going to cost $1 million for all these kids.
Pay attention, because I was told last week, Catch, is that, Texas is I was told Texas is not in the business of overspending on players. And they're waiting for the market to come down a little bit more on things because they feel like the market will correct itself. But the one thing they don't want to be is on the hook for overpaying guys that they're like, no, we're not, no one else is doing that. So this Texas has never been wanting to do a whole, price war, competing against other guys. That's not their thing. I think it's a huge pay attention, because there's a belief behind the scenes that the market will correct itself and all these outlandish things will eventually get regulated, in that they will not have to spend as much with these things. Now, again, we'll have to see what happens, because it's still, with the July 1st thing, but then there's also the, you still have collectives and NIL. So there's still certain things that are going to be worked out. But I do think that is a hope. I think it's a pay attention to that kind of thing, because most schools are, they feel like, hey, it's not sustainable. Like, we can't do, 30 million of this every single year for the next 30, 40 years. That's what they say. So I definitely think the market will start to come down. The prices will start to come down.
Yeah, I can't help but remember my sources told me, your sources as well, like a lot of sources telling us, hey, we don't like to show our cards in April or May or June or July or August. We think that's stupid to let everybody know what our NIL positioning is. And we saw them make their moves late. And look, they didn't wait late for Decorey and Moore, and it didn't matter. But they did wait late on Fasusi. They did not make the eventual NIL pitch to Fasusi that they eventually made late. They didn't do that before he made his commitment. They literally, when we tell people, hey, man, these coaches just aren't out here tripping on these July and August commitments to such a degree that, like, as bad as they wanted Michael Fasusi at the end of the process, they thought it's a bad strategic play. So when I saw the Jalen Lott numbers being talked about, I just thought Texas hasn't talked to this kid about money at all. They're not. They have not entered that space yet, and they won't until later. And what will be interesting is where Texas decides to invest money, because they went after such a big receiver class last year with so much star power. This is part of what comes into recruiting decisions now that I don't think enough people are thinking about. Is you have to be mindful of where you're putting your money.
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that with an edge guy and Richard Wesley, they probably treat him and his position different than you would any other position. But if you're a running back, if you're a receiver, if you're a tight end, if you are anything other than maybe a left tackle, and they didn't do it with Asusi a year ago, so who knows? I think, because you and I were having this conversation last week, I was like, hey, is Brandon Harris the capologist, if you will, for the football program? And we were talking about it like, the person that decides there's $16 million to spend and we're going to devote this much to this position and this much to this position. Like, who does that? I just don't know. And we talked about it a little bit, checked with some people. It's like, yeah, that's part of Brandon Harris's job. He is the general manager of the program. That falls under his heading. And it's like, oh, so starting this year, these are just decisions with regards to how they'll recruit that have never been into play before. And I don't think enough fans are watching recruiting and realizing that every staff in America, certainly the ones at the major conferences, are like, cool, let's just go get as many good players as we can. It's like, well, hold up there, because this is how much it's going to cost us to get a Mark Bowman, the tight end, who's a 5-star, and USC is offering $2.8 million a year for 3 years. Oh, well, we don't have $2.8 million in our budget at the tight end position. Exactly. So maybe no matter how bad Mark Bowman wants to come to school A, if school A suddenly doesn't have that much money available, it's why I'm like, look, guys, we're not going to prepare ourselves for the fact that one school is going to look at a guy and go, I think that guy's worth $300,000. And we may have to just live with the fact that Texas A&M may look at a kid that Texas thinks is $300,000 good, and Texas A&M may say, you know what, that guy for us is a $700,000 player, and they may offer him $700,000, and Texas may go, yeah, we're not paying that. We can't. We have other bills to pay. We have to keep these costs in mind. And I think
Texas Tech is a great example, by the way, because Texas Tech, you remember it was a kid from Stanford that Texas was looking at as an edge guy,
the Bailey kid, David Bailey,
something like that.
Yeah,
and Texas was interested, and when Tech put down their offer, they're like, "Yeah, we're out. Like you go enjoy that. We're not doing that."
It's not about come here because we're the best team in America and you could win a national championship and go to the NFL. And the coaches understand it.
Yeah,
like the Syracuse coach didn't get upset when Murad Watson was like, "Yo, man, FYI, I'm probably gonna get like $1 million in the portal." And he's like, "Oh, well, you're not getting that here. If you can get that somewhere, you should go." Yes. And it was like, bet.
Correct.
And so, like, we got to get out of our feelings with some of this stuff, just so everybody knows. Like, that is the one thing we have to stop doing. And yeah, I did see Barb's $10 super chat. It's early, but what has A&M actually done to recruit like this? Is their recruiting room that much better? What does UT have to close the gap? True GM catch. No, they're a Texas school in the SEC with tons of money to spend, with donors who are actively active. Like, A&M has always recruited well. Always, my entire life. Look, here's my life in recruiting. I came in, got involved in the mid-90s. A&M was dominating Texas in recruiting. Get into like the 2000s and Texas is dominating in recruiting, but A&M's still signing 5-stars. They're still, when Texas is signing Vince Young, A&M's still signing Reggie McNeil. You go into when all throughout the 2000s, kind of the same. They're top 5 sometimes, they're top 10 sometimes, they're not anywhere to be seen sometimes. But at their best, when they're not completely dysfunctional, A&M recruits really well. They always have.
They had a number 1 recruiting class a couple of years ago.
What's that?
They had a number 1 recruiting class just a couple of years ago.
I mean, Barbs, I hate to say it like this because I know that this is a Texas channel, but what have they done? They exist. Like, and the cool thing about being a Texas fan, man, you don't have to. A&M's going to get some. They do. If you look at the national blue chip rankings right now, of which Texas ranks 3rd in the country, and A&M, I want to say, is maybe 8th or 9th or tied for 8th. I forget exactly what it is. Texas has officially double. They have twice as many elite level prospects on their roster than Texas A&M does. So you got double the money of somebody else. Are you really worried about their money that much? It's like that in anything. If you got 2 cars, are you worried about somebody's 1 car? I mean, you do it with every exercise. Do it with, if you got 2 kids, are you worried about if you got 4 kids, are you worried about anybody else's 1 kid at all? No, you got your kids, you're good. Texas gets so many recruits, Texas fans have to stop being worried about A&M. They're going to get some. They are. But Texas will get a Richard Wesley like this weekend, and you'll go, oh, that's right. Sark collects these guys by the bushels, doesn't he? Okay, cool. And weirdly, these 2 schools don't collide a whole lot in recruiting anymore. It's weird how few head-to-heads there genuinely are. For instance, Richard Wesley was offered by A&M, but that wasn't like like these guys. There are some crossovers where there are visits that are being taken, but true A&M Texas battles. It's what made the KJ Edwards thing so notable a week ago. Is it really did feel like it came down to those 2 schools, and so it was like, hey, A&M landed a left hand on Texas. And it's like, so? I mean, occasionally Floyd Mayweather would get punched, right? But he ducked most of them. He didn't lose many rounds. Like, yes, A&M will dot Texas in the eye every once in a while. I just don't think we live in a universe anymore where like we even need to be conditioned to worry, unless A&M starts recruiting like 2022 every year, when they're suddenly stacking recruiting classes on top of recruiting classes. Yeah, man, you'd probably worry about them right now. But Texas's real focus is beating Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama. Really, those are the 3 programs talent-wise that match up with Texas. It feels like to win a national championship, those are the 4 programs everybody has to go through. Naaman Roberts for $9.99 said, catch, I told Chad last week, that was the difference between Texas and the Aggies are the trenches. The Aggies are getting top skill recruits, but Texas is recruiting every position at an elite level. Yeah, Naaman, look, A&M has recruited the defensive line in previous years better than Texas. But I think it's hard to recruit well everywhere every year. That's the thing. Tom Herman was pretty good at getting DBs and wide receivers and skill guys. I mean, let's not forget he signed a terrific wide receiver class in that 2018 class. He signs Bijan Robinson, so he's pulling 5-star running backs out of state. I mean, he wasn't inept as a recruiter, but he could not get the big guys. He just didn't. Couldn't get them on the offensive line, couldn't get them in the front 7. It probably was a thing that kept him from completely taking off. But Sark doesn't have that problem. He came in as a guy where it was like, oh my God, quarterbacks and receivers and skill guys. And, the greatest secret or the greatest trick the devil ever played on Texas fans with Sarkisian right now is convincing them that they are where they are right now because of the offense. They were in the Final Four last year because of the defense, although the year before you wouldn't have said that. And I think they're a rightful preseason number 1 this year, primarily because whatever the hell I don't know about that Texas offense on war, I can look at that Texas defense and I'm like, yeah, man, they're going to be really, really good, as evidenced by the fact that Pro Football Focus has them with the number one linebacker and the number one DB units in America on the same field together. It's a good place as a building block to just have the best two position groups of your back seven-ish on your defense. And then that doesn't even include Colin Simmons and the rest of those jokers up front.
No. Hey, Catch, why don't we close it real quick with the last super chat here. We'll close it on this one. Houston overpaid for Durant. Suns fleeced him.
I don't know, man. I think I'll tell you what. Here's what I'll do. There's a guy that I used to play poker with that writes for CBS Sports. Let me find it. He said it best. And I was like, you know what? I don't know that I know. Let me see if I'm trying to find it. I hate when I say I'm looking for things, but then I'm not really ready to look for the thing on War. And so then it's like, I'm not going to find the thing. I thought the trade was okay. I think the thing, because I can't find the trade right now, I'm just not going to fuck with it. I think the thing that's notable is that it still feels like Houston, who, by the way, I looked at the Vegas odds today. That trade put Vegas in the number 2 spot, according to Vegas, next year to win the NBA championship. They're plus 900. That's second best. Oklahoma City's like plus 250. So whatever we think of the trade, Vegas thinks it made Houston legit. I still think it feels like Houston's a player away. But I think it was a good trade. I don't know that they gave up that much. And I've seen, they didn't have to give up. Ultimately, they didn't have to give up a player that they wanted to keep, like the players they still have the tandem with Durant. And I think if you're Houston, that's the most important thing. You didn't really give up a piece of the current team that you didn't want to give up. But yeah, man, you got to give up something to get something unless you're dealing with the Lakers. And at which point they'll approve any trade if it'll make the Lakers better.
100%. Hey, at the end of the day, Houston's trying to win, man. One thing I'll give Houston credit for, they do try to win. Like if you want to go all in, I mean, it is what it is. But I still think it's a lot, though. I mean, they give up Jalen Green, Brooks, a 10th overall pick, 5 second rounders. I think it's a lot, but hey,
so my guy Hardwood Paroxysm, this guy's name's Matt Smith. I've known him for a long time, does really good work, right? Here's how he framed it. And this guy's not a Rockets fan. I can assure you of that. Houston, A, gets Durant. B, keeps Phoenix's long-term future. C, gets clear of Jalen Green's contract. D, still has ability to make other moves. E, keeps Amon, Sanguin, and Jabari. F, clears room for Shepard and maybe Whitmore. Home run, 5 stars.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I ain't worried. At the end of the day, it's a lot to me, but I would also say, who the hell really cares about a second rounder at that point? So, I mean, if your worry is,
that's all they are. They're just trade sweeteners.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can trade and get those picks back from
you can buy them
somewhere at another turn. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's good for Houston. Hey, it'll give you something to do, Catch. It'll give you some. You know what it'll do though? I'll be honest with you. And it's kind of you mentioned it in your column. It'll give me more of an incentive to watch the NBA.
I didn't watch the Rockets a single time this year.
Barely. Only I watch. It's not must-see TV. No. It's not must-see for me. It's if it's on.
I'll take my kids to a Rockets game this year for sure. Why not? Let's go see Kevin Durant play. And it's a chance for Kevin Durant in his final couple of years. Okay, it was a lost cause in Phoenix apparently. Yeah. My God, what a disaster. He's at Houston. Everybody thinks, okay, they got it shot. Okay, well, now you're relevant again, and you're in the twilight of your career. The thing that he's going to get in that situation, just like in Golden State, last possession of the game, everybody's going to get the hell out of the way and they're going to give it to 35. Mm-hmm. And he'll get a chance to either make or not make the biggest shots of his Houston career. That's why they're bringing him in. They need somebody to put up 30 a game. and really carry a scoring load, he's going to take them last shot. So it's not like he's going somewhere to be somebody's Robin. Really.
Yeah.
He can still kind of be Batman. And if they were to win a championship, he'd probably get more glory and credit than he did in Golden State. And I don't know that he can ask for a better chance of anything than that in these last couple of years, because he could just go somewhere where we just don't care where he is. He's on what is now looks like one of the best teams in the league to win next year. All right, let's see what happens. Guys, we can't do this without Rogue Shop. Use that promo code OrangeBloods. Go shopping today. You don't have to be in a rush. But yeah, man, go get your first order. If you haven't done that, use that promo code OrangeBloods. Get that discount. For myself, Anwar Richardson, we appreciate you giving us a little bit of time on a Monday. We had a good time. It was good for the two of us to be back, dance partners again. We'll do it again next Monday. You guys have a great one.